let's go ahead and do that. Looking at Lad McConkey, he's a 6', 185-pound junior, former 3-star prospect, and get this, guys, the number 187 wide receiver in his class, which is crazy because he way outperformed that, I think. Best season was, of course, last year. We had 762 yards, 7 touchdowns. Kind of took a dip back to his freshman production. Only had 478 yards and 2 touchdowns this year, which I think I might have saw both of them. I'm not sure. I think I remember seeing both of them. But let's dive into his route running like we did with Brian Thomas Jr. And I think he did really well in his route running. I really, really liked. He looked faster, and we're going to get into this later on when it comes to speed. He looked faster than I thought he was going to. He ran some really, really solid routes. I mean, there was one route. I can't remember because I watched the same game film as somebody else, but there was one route where he had an absolutely just filthy start and stop combo. The ball was underthrown, and he adjusted really well to it to make a good catch. But I mean, it was just a filthy route, and I saw him do this time and time again on his film. What did you guys see when it comes to his route running, maybe his release package, that sort of thing? I'll start with you, Rupert.
This is his, trump card, I guess. As we're down definition of always open, he's hyper efficient with his footwork, never really takes like a wrong step. He's really quick in short spaces, strong legs with the jab steps. At the stem of his route, he's able to stop super quick and sink his hips, cut inside, cut outside, come back. He's really good on post routes as well. He really can run the full route tree. He may not be like the most athletic guy, but in short areas, there's going to be few that are better than him.
Yeah, I loved his route running. I thought, there were, I haven't counted. I don't know, a lot of times that I paused to make a note, like he was wide open, where he may not have necessarily gotten a target, or the target may have been off. So he could have been, just for context too, you mentioned the production numbers, 478 yards, 2 touchdowns this year. He missed a significant chunk of games with injury. So he played 8 games, I think. So not, I don't know.
Quarterback play wasn't that great either. I mean, like I saw just what you mentioned. Like there were so many times where he was wide open and he just didn't get the ball, or he didn't get the target. So I think 478 there's a lot more to it than just that.
There's a lot that I like about Carson Beck, so I don't want to get into like throwing shade on him. Any wide receivers you study, you're going to see plays that they're wide open, and maybe the ball wasn't designed to go there, or he's third in the progression and the pressure got there or whatever. So like, I'm not trying to throw shade on Carson Beck. I felt like Lad McConkey was always open. He was incredible, particularly when he was given cushion and he had the ability to get up there at the stem of the route with some space and manipulate the defense and put his foot in the ground and nod one way, go the other way. I mean, he was just juking guys out of their shoes. A little bit of struggle maybe against press coverage and some physical play when guys would hand check him. But especially when he was given room to operate, he was really, really good. And he was not just a slot guy either. I mean, he ran a ton of routes from the outside. He was winning deep down the field. I think his average depth of target was like over 12 yards down the field. His average yards per catch was like 16 yards per reception. So you're not talking about just this gadgety slot player. No. I know that it's easy to kind of make that assumption about him because he's a white guy. And there's a lot of huge players in this class, right? Like 6'3", 6'4", 210 pounds or whatever. He's 6 foot 185, which is respectable. He actually would have been one of the bigger players in last year's draft class because they were all tiny. But because this class is full of all these big X alpha type guys, it's natural to just like profile Lad McConkey as the slot dude. But you mentioned Rupert. He was a lot faster than I thought that he was going to be. He definitely was a little bit bigger, and he lined up outside a lot more than I expected him to. So overall, I like Lad McConkey. I would rather comp him to a guy like Deontay Johnson than a guy like Hunter Renfrow. Like everybody wants to throw out the Hunter Renfrow comp. I think a guy like Deontay Johnson fits
I
him
think he's
a
more. I
lot
think he's
better.
more Cooper Cup than he is Hunter Renfrow. Maybe that's just I don't know if we're making those comps.
I mean, Cooper Cup is like a ceiling comp. I hesitate to comp anybody to a guy that, like broken NFL receiving yardage records. So
The triple threat.
that just feels unfair to Lad McConkey to put that on him. But
My comp, I'm curious what y'all think about this, was Doug Baldwin.
I kind of like that.
I don't know. I was not scouting players when Doug Baldwin was playing. I feel like I remember him being a yak guy, which Lad McConkey is, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I don't remember specifically like about Doug Baldwin as a route runner. I don't have specific memory of that. So
here's my question for y'all, because maybe I saw it differently. I loved his route running. I loved his ability to sink his hips and to break off really sharp and just run solid routes. I felt like, and Cooper, you alluded to this a little bit, when he was pressed, when he didn't get a clean release and when guys were up in his face, I saw 3 or 4 instances of him getting pushed off route or even getting knocked down to the ground while he was running his routes. And this is moving on, I guess, to his ball skills. Like his physicality and hand fighting, I think that was his worst trait. It's not enough for me not to like be off of him, but it definitely was something that I'm concerned about, because when you get to the next level, DBs are faster, DBs are stronger. I'm personally worried about if Lad McConkey gets pressed, what's that going to look like for him? Because he's not the most physical guy in the class, and he was probably the worst when it came that I've scouted so far when it came to his physicality. Did you guys see this the same way? Am I looking at this completely wrong? I'll start with you, Cooper.
no, I mean, I already made a note about it. I don't know if I would say he's the worst in the class with his physicality. I don't even know that it was definitively worse than Brian Thomas, who's like way bigger than him. I didn't feel like it was a strong suit, and there were definitely a couple plays that I noted where he was getting bullied, but I feel like I saw some plays too where he did win against press coverage. I don't think it's like this like super huge red flag, at least from what I watched.
Yeah, in the games I watched, it's not a red flag for me. I think 2 or 3 times in the Alabama game, they were able to get physical with him, but as kind of took that as it's going to happen. Like wide receivers not going to win every time, and I felt like he won the majority of the time, and they tried to press him a lot. So I wouldn't call that a strong suit of his, but I also don't really see it as a weakness.
So maybe I'm just lower on him most. I mean, I did note a lot of times him getting pushed to the ground, but if you guys aren't worried about it, one thing that I did really like about him was his body control in his hands. He seemed to extend really well to the ball. He had really good hands. I didn't note any drops on his film from the games that I watched, and his body control. Let me guys tell you, for some of the throws that I watched where the ball was underthrown, he had to make an adjustment, like a diving catch, or really adjust to a poorly thrown ball. He did this really well. I thought that was a strength of his. I marked that as a plus in his favor, his body control in his hands. Did you guys see the same thing? I'll start with you, Rupert.
Yeah, same thing. Multiple diving, sliding catches he was making. One play really stuck out where the quarterback kind of had escaped to the right, and Lad pretty much, I think he ran like a post, and he had to come all the way back, and it was underthrown, so he had to really kind of dive low, and he was able to scoop it up off the ground and make the catch.
I think I saw the exact same play. Yeah.
Yeah, I noted multiple kind of like sliding catches, and he did that at the senior bowl practices a lot as well.
What about you, Coop?
Yeah, made a couple of the same notes. Plucked a ball that was, he's coming on a crossing route, the ball's thrown behind him, and he reaches back and plucks it. One that was underthrown, so he had to come back and kind of dive and catch it low at his toes, and he plucks it. So yeah, I mean he's not a big, huge guy that's going to go win a bunch of contested catches, but I thought he had very reliable hands and good body control to reach back and get stuff that's outside of his frame. I didn't see any drops. So yeah, overall, especially for a littler guy, I thought he had really good ball skills.
Let's talk about something that really was a huge strength of him, and that was his yards after the catch. I mean, we've already alluded to it a little bit. This dude was way faster than I think any of us came into the film expecting him to be. There was one play that I think is just the epitome of what he is, right? He runs a solid route, crosser over the middle. The ball is underthrown a little bit, so he adjusts just back to the ball, catches the ball, jukes out two guys on the way to a touchdown. Showed great route running, showed great body control, and then finally his yards after the catch was on display. I mean, it was the full picture of Lad McConkey. Love that play, and I think his yards after the catch is just another thing that sets him apart as a wide receiver in this draft class. He did really, really well in this department. Showed great elusiveness. Showed the ability to catch the ball and know what he was going to do with it. I mean, I love this when I saw Lad McConkey play. What did you guys think in this area?
Yeah, same. He showed a lot of awareness, like especially in zones.
Yeah.
Like you said, like he would find the soft spot in the zone. He already knew this plan where he's going to get 12 extra yards of yak. Another really great play was, I think, a 40-something yard touchdown. He was running over route. He kind of feels that there's no defender on the backside, so he just stops on a dime, turns back around, and sprints towards the pylon. And no one catches him. He has pretty good long speed. He's nowhere near like Brian Thomas like long speed, but he mostly wins with his short area quickness and being able to shoot guys and kind of know where to go. He has good vision, but he also has decent long speed where he's not going to get caught from behind every time either.
Yeah, this was a strength for him for sure. It was for Lad McConkey. I mean, they were using him on tunnel screens. They were using him on jet sweeps. They were trying to find ways to get the ball in his hands. I was really surprised by this for a guy that is not necessarily known as being super athletic. He was sticking his foot in the ground and just juking guys out of their shoes. He was dropping stiff arms. He caught the ball and he turned into a running back. He was following his blocks. So I loved what I saw. I was pleasantly surprised, not only at how good he was at it, but how often it was like all over his tape. Whereas we said with Brian Thomas Jr. just a minute ago, it's hard to even say because he's just mostly being used down the field and they're not getting the ball in his hands that way. Not the case for Lad McConkey. He was getting the ball consistently in those situations, and he was winning consistently in those situations. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy. This is why I just said, Jackson, that I would have him ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. because he's probably in the top 3 or 4 route runners in the class that we've studied so far. We all just loved his ball skills. He's great after the catch. I mean, these are the most important traits that you can look for in a receiver. And the only knock you might say, oh, well, he doesn't have the athletic upside. But again, I mean, we mentioned guys like Cooper Kupp. He's been a fantastic wide receiver one without having a ton of athletic upside. So if you're a great route runner and you're getting open and you're getting a high volume of targets and you're creating after the catch, like I think he's got way more fantasy upside than people are giving him credit for. Yeah. And I think he's going to be a top 40 pick in the NFL draft. Yeah. So for me, I
can see where you're coming from for that. Like, I guess I would only put Brian Thomas maybe above him just because of what the upside could potentially be for Brian Thomas. But I totally see where you're coming from. I'm not that's not a knock to Lad McConkey. I liked him a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying for me, like I came away really like way more impressed with his film than I expected. Like I knew like, okay, I've seen some highlights from the Senior Bowl. I know he's shifty and he's got, I'm a sucker for route running. So I kind of knew I was going to like Lad McConkey, but I didn't expect to fall in love with Lad McConkey the way that I did. And I think the NFL is going to love him too. I think he's going to get an opportunity. I think he's got more fantasy upside than he's being given credit for. And for me, if I had to rank him right now, I would take him at the back end of the first round in Superflex drafts of the guys that we've studied so far. And that's not anywhere near what I'm seeing in terms of ADP and mock drafts. So I think I'm going to get a lot of Lad McConkey shares this year, which makes me plenty happy because I'm excited about the guy.
Yeah, I think he has such a high floor. Like, he's such a safe pick. Like, pretty much guaranteed to get 80 receptions every year that he's healthy, I feel like, with his route running, inability to get open. So I feel like you're just, kind of getting a lock and loaded player on your squad.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm not too far behind. Like I would take him at the top of the second round. So like I'm right there with you. Like I'm not super, further down than you are. Like I still like him a lot. And I mean, you're seeing him go like, I mean, I've seen some mocks him going in the third round. I've seen him go in the fourth round like a few times. Like that's not what his ADP is. But like, of course, you're looking at a guy like last year, and I'm not trying to make this comp, but like Puka Nakua, right? I mean, you could pick him up in the last with almost the last pick of your rookie drafts this year, and now he's going for multiple first in rookie drafts. I mean, just because a guy's ADP is there, like if he shows the traits on camera on the field, like if he can run routes, if he's fast, if he's his yards after the catch are good, like his ball skills are good, like those are all telltale signs that he's going to be a good wide receiver. So I've got no problem taking him, in the top of the second round right now. I mean, that's kind of where I have him right now. Rupert, where do you have him at?
Yeah, same. I feel like I'd be comfortable taking him at the end of the first, top of the second.
Yeah, so I mean, just thinking about who we've studied so far, because I'm not going to comment on guys that we haven't. I will say, let's assume in a super flex league, we haven't gotten a quarterbacks yet, but let's assume there's 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks that are going in the first round of super flex rookie drafts because they went in the first round of the NFL draft. I don't think it's going to be more than 4. So you got 4 guys, and then Bowers, so that's 5, and then wide receiver wise, I'm taking definitely Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Worthy probably above him. And then right there, I mean, it's a tough call for me between Franklin and Lad McConkey. So you're talking about 10. And if you throw in our RB1 there, Brooks or Irving, I mean, I'm not taking him any later right now than 11 at the latest in a super flex draft. And that's assuming 4 first round quarterbacks. That's, putting him behind Franklin. That's putting him behind one of those running backs. So I'm pretty bullish on McConkey. I don't see myself letting him get past me in the early second round.
No, I think that's a great word for definitely our listeners. And, I mean, you guys are all hearing it. He's a guy that we would all are going to have massive shares on. So definitely go out and get you some Lad McConkey for sure.